Well, I hope everybody took time to say Happy Mother's Day to all the women in their life, or all the mothers, I guess, that gave a damn about you while you were growing up and whatnot. So, time to shout out those wives that you have that are baby mamas for you, and those aunties and real moms that held you down as a youngin. Anyways, this is welcome. This is the voice, and we're gonna go ahead and preview the 2020-21 DHL Championship Finals, and we have five-time DHL champ CRM against first-time Team Proof, his first time in the DHL Championship. So this is his chance to finally get over that hump and see if he can prove the haters wrong and not show any type of Ken crumble. Now, again, I do want to congratulate everybody that made it to the Final Four, Pep and them, Elhan. But if we're being honest, this second round was a little bit of a letdown for the viewers because both of these matchups were done early. CRM wrapped up his matchup by the end of Friday, and Team Proof wrapped up his matchup by the end of Saturday. So going into Sunday, we didn't really have anything to look forward to as far as excitement and stat watching. So again, as we go through the history, CRM has been in these finals. He's been to the finals seven times so far in DHL history. Of course, we're not counting the COVID year, 2019-2020 season. No championship matchup that year, so this is a redacted season, you could say. But CRM has made the championship round seven times out of our 15-year existence. So he has a great track record, of course. And again, as we stated earlier, Team Proof is his first time in the championship round. He does have quite a few third place finishes, especially here early in the beginning of our tenure as a league, and then later on during the middle of our illustrious history. Team Proof has finished third four times in the DHL, but again, his first time in the championship round. So I'm gonna be honest, I'm excited about this matchup. The last time WMD or CRM reached the finals and played a first-time opponent, he lost to Horseman. Well, actually, no, I take that back because he did beat Rocket Red. That was his first time in the championship round. So we'll see how it goes in this championship. I'm excited for Team Proof again, his first time in the championship round. I want to see how he attacks this. If we go through Team Proof's moves, it's not that he hasn't been making moves. It's just look at the times. This is well after and again, you got to remember, mine is a little bit later on. So you see, he has some. Uh, I apologize. On my desktop, it has me as if I'm still in California. But anyways, we see that Team Proof not really getting up right at the crack of midnight to make his ads. So he is making ads, he is making moves, he's being active, but he's not really hustling out there to get first dibs on these waiver ads. And that might actually not really matter in this round because later on we'll look at CRM's team and his squad, and he does have a pretty healthy, pretty strength driven squad. So it's not going to make a lot of sense for him to drop guys, especially if they're all healthy and they're most likely going to play in their games. And because of that, I think that Team Proof will have a bit of an advantage on the waiver wire as far as he's going to be able to maximize his roster a little bit more by trying to add and drop these guys throughout the championship week. And speaking of that, I did say championship week. Let's go ahead and look at the schedule as we go into week 20. So as we look into week 20, we see that Detroit and OKC, they both had three games this week, but we do have Indiana, Memphis, Milwaukee, and San Antonio that all have five games in week 20. But before I really get into that, what's really interesting to me is what we see here. On Saturday and Sunday, none of these games are scheduled yet. Well, actually, before we even get to that, only 7 days in week 20. Normally in our championship round, it goes until the Wednesday, and that's a 10-game championship round. So we have the 7 days that we have in our normal last week, and then we have the 3 leftover days before we get into the actual NBA playoffs to go ahead and wrap up the fantasy season. So normally that last week of fantasy basketball is 10 days rather than the normal 7-day matchup. So again, we have a little bit of a difference here because this is going to be more of a sprint to the finish with just a normal 7-game setup for this championship round rather than the 10 days that we're all kind of used to. Now, as we take a look on Saturday and Sunday, again, none of these games are scheduled, which is interesting to me because normally the way that NBA kind of takes a anti-tanking measure is when those games end on Wednesday, they all end at 7:30. I'm sorry, 4:30 on the West Coast. They all start on at 4:30 on the West Coast, 7:30 on the East Coast. All the games start at the same time. That's the point I'm trying to make. And because all those games start at the same time, teams can't really decide if they want to sit players or not by the score, the outcome of a game prior to their start time. So because everybody's starting at the same time, coaches got to make game time or real time decisions as those games go on. Okay, maybe in the fourth quarter we'll rest all our guys because we know the team ahead of us lost or the team behind us in the standings lost, so we can go ahead and just take the rest of the night off because we have the tiebreaker or whatever the case may be. So this year, with the games ending on a Sunday, it's going to be interesting to see if the NBA decides to start all the games at the same time on a Sunday, or because it's a weekend, hey, let's go ahead and cash in on the viewership. People are going to be tuning in because a lot of these games down the stretch are going to have implications to how the season is going to end with the play-in tournament and whatnot. So if these games don't all start at the same time, this is going to be very interesting to see how they schedule these games out on Sunday, because that's a little bit of a strategic advantage when you have the later games going into Sunday. If all the games start at the same time, then everybody just, especially if this is a close matchup going into these finals, you got to make a pimp decision early on who you want to play and just kind of let the chips fall where they may and let it ride. But if we end up figuring out that some games start later than others, now you got a little bit of a scheduling advantage for that Sunday game to try to close out a championship round. That being said, I'm going to be interested to see, if CRM and Team Proof are going to be watching to see when these games get scheduled to kind of plan out who they might pick up a little bit earlier than Saturday, so that way they can kind of go ahead and maximize some of the later games if that's going to be the case. But it's going to be interesting to see if this is how it's going to be going forward, because of course the NBA is giving themselves a little extra time to have these play-in games during the week as primetime games throughout the weekday when you're coming home from work. So on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, that play-in tournament is going to be must-see TV coming home. Those are probably going to be games starting like, TNT broadcasts where the games start kind of about 8 o'clock or whatever on the East Coast, 5 o'clock West Coast time. And then we got the late games and whatnot. So I'm going to try to be drinking my Red Bull and my Monster Energy drink so I can make sure I stay up and can sit through these play-in games, because I'm excited about it, honestly, as this is step away from fantasy for a little bit. I think this is awesome because, especially, actually bring it back to fantasy. The play-in games have really elevated the ending of a season for fantasy because so many teams have so much more things to play for. You're much more likely now to get some of your main players playing all the way through. For somebody like Team Proof, who has Steph Curry, he's trying to get to that 6th spot still. There's still a chance. And so I'm sure they don't really want to have to play the Lakers or something like that in a 7-8 matchup for the first day of the playing games. He'd rather miss that and, just go ahead and get into that playing game or get into that 6th seed, so that way they don't even have to worry about playing the Lakers and possibly losing 2 games in a row to miss the playoffs. And just in general, I discussed it on the message board. You look at somebody like CRM, they have a whole bunch of people on their team that have things to play for due to the play-in games. So very interested on how this is going to go going forward for fantasy. I'm excited to see if this is going to be something with the games to be announced, if that's going to be something that we're going to have to watch out for going forward in fantasy, if games are going to kind of end on a Sunday, so that way the NBA could have those prime time Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night games um, for their play-in tournament rather than having the play-in tournament going into the weekend where, on the weekend, let's be real, families are busy. People's eyes aren't really as tuned in on the TV as they might be during a weekday when you're just going to come home, chill at the house, turn on the TV and sit in front of the sofa with your family or something. On the weekend, people are going to be out and about doing things. So having those playing games on the weekend might not be as lucrative for the NBA. So, anyways, I'm going in the weeds a little bit here. I do apologize about that, but I'm interested to see how that plays effect on fantasy going forward. So again, if we look at the schedule, Indiana, Memphis, Milwaukee all have 5 games. So that's John Morant with 5 games. That's Drew Holiday with 5 games. That's Karis LeVert with 5 games. That's Domantas Sabonis with 5 games. So if you're just looking at that on paper, it seems like it's going to be really tough for Team Proof to kind of overcome in such a quick time to make up for these 5 games that big time players are going to be playing for CRM. Now, if I'm being honest, do I think Drew Holiday, do I think Sabonis play all 5 games? No, I think they most likely sit on some of these back to backs. So, what Team Proof has to hope is that they sit on days where there's not going to be much alternatives for CRM to plug and play. So, if I'm Team Proof, I'm hoping that Drew Holiday and Sabonis sit on the start of these back to backs and play on the Tuesday, so that way, you know, CRM has to put in Looney, and then he doesn't have an alternate for Drew Holiday. I'm crossing my fingers that Anthony Davis sits on this Wednesday versus Trash Houston that the Lakers should be able to beat with or without Anthony Davis on the floor. And then I'm hoping that he sits on the Saturday against Indiana and decides to play that last day right before the play in, get his momentum. So I'm hoping Anthony Davis sits on some of these back to backs. I don't really think he is because he already pushed through an injury to play in that Portland game because it was such an important game to the Lakers because they're trying to get off of that play in bubble also. So honestly, Anthony Davis probably plays 3 of these games. I think he probably does sit against Houston. We'll see what happens there, but Team Proof is going to need a little bit of luck on his side just because of the stacked talent that CRM has right now. For Team Proof, the strong schedule really only applies to Bryn Forbes, which has been playing pretty well as of late. And honestly, he's a guy that's probably going to play all 5 games. So he's probably going to get a little extra burn when Drew Holiday rests. Middleton is probably going to rest at some point. Giannis is going to rest. Again, those 3 players, Holiday, Giannis, and Middleton, I think they only played 3 games this week. I don't think they played the full 5. So I think Bryn Forbes is going to be a really nice add for Team Proof and give him a little extra value throughout the week. But if we're being totally honest, 3 games of Drew Holiday probably cancels out anything that Bryn Forbes is going to do in a 5 game schedule. And just looking at Forbes' averages for the last 14 days, 13 points, 3.1 rebounds, 2.9 3-pointers made at 51%. So really, the only category that he's really giving you anything in is the category that Team Proof is most likely going to dominate in this championship round, which is the 3-point made because Curry's just going batshit insane. And again, Steph Curry has everything to play for these last 4 games. So I expect him to leave it all on the floor in hopes of having the Golden State Warriors move up in those standings a little bit. So the good thing for Proof is if we look at the matchups, he beat CRM in week 2, 7-6. Then he beat him again in week 15, 8-5. And I know what CRM is going to say. Hey, this is regular season, playoffs. It's a whole different animal. I have a whole new team, so on and so forth. Yes, I understand that. That's great. But where it does matter is the fact that Team Proof, all he really needs to do is get a tie. If he can get a 6-6-1, he's a winner because now he has the tiebreaker for having the better record against CRM during the regular season. So there's a little less pressure on Team Proof because, of course, you want to play for the win. You want to make sure that you get your 7 categories and don't leave anything into the hands of fate. But worst case scenario, you could walk out of here with a 6-6-1 tie and technically still claim the DHL championship. But when I look at the categories, I still think that CRM is going to have the advantage for this championship matchup. When I'm going through it, there's 7 categories that I feel are kind of locked for either one of these two opponents in this finals matchup. So where I see locks in free throws made, and I'm giving that to CRM. We look at his team stats over the last 14 days, and we have Joel Embiid, 9.5 free throws made. Jimmy Butler, 7 free throws made. Then you got a healthy 4.4 from Ja Morant, 4.1 from Domantas Sabonis, 4.3 from Anthony Davis. And you got to remember, you got Morant, Sabonis playing 5 games possibly. You got Anthony Davis playing 4 games possibly. Then Jimmy Butler and Embiid, of course, 4 games each. So free throws made, I don't really think that CRM is going to really have to work to get that category. That should be a lock for him. The next category I see as a lock is the free throw percentage. And that goes to Team Proof. Now, he doesn't have a whole bunch of guys shooting a lot of free throws. Really, the only guy that shoots a lot of free throws is Steph Curry, and he's basically carrying that category with attempts and percentage. So you got a guy hitting almost 90% of his free throws and basically being the engine for that free throw percentage category. I really love Team Proof's ability to go ahead and lock in this free throw percentage category in the championship round. Even as guys that don't shoot as much, you got Kyrie Irving shooting 93%, and that's a healthy 4 free throws made that he's shooting at. Everybody else that halfway shoots decent free throws, we talking 80%, 1,000, 100%. You know what I'm saying? So Mikal Bridges, 83%. Again, I really like Mikal, man. I think he's going to be a nice little draft pick next year. I think he's going to kind of skyrocket as one of those fantasy 3-and-D guys where he's going to give you a block, a steal, and a couple 3-pointers made and some healthy points. I think that he's going to be very valuable going into next season. Vucevic, he's been an all-star basically all season for fantasy, possible fantasy MVP type candidate. Played all year, hasn't really gotten hurt, hasn't been out for COVID protocols or anything like that. But anyways, he's shooting 90% from the free throw line, the charity stripe. So this is a category that Team Proof, he's going to have to do a lot of adding of garbage free throw shooters and volume free throw shooters to really hurt his percentages. So I think that he walks away with that category hands down. Then, of course, 3 points made, Steph Curry, nothing else to really talk about here. Plus, CRM, he hasn't been a good 3-point made shooting team all year. His ads of Sabonis don't really help that. AD doesn't really help that. So, 3 points made, lock and loaded, that should be Team Proof's category. Now, the issue is the last few categories that I really see as categories that are really going to be hard to contest is points, and that goes to CRM, and that's just to do with all the talent. John Morant, Anthony Davis on his team now after that trade at the trade deadline. Sabonis off the free agency or off the waivers. So these are guys. Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's been really having a really great season this year. I don't really think a lot of people are talking about it because after going into the finals last year, Miami's been hit with COVID really hard. He had that injury early in the season, but Jimmy Butler been balling, man. Like 21 points, 7 rebounds, 7.2 assists, 2 steals. Come on, man. Like this guy, he out here eating. Free throws made, 7 free throws made at 86%, shooting almost 50% from the field. This guy, real life fantasy. Sometimes in fantasy he's a little frustrating because he'll just go out there and just do winning plays stuff, and it don't really translate to fantasy. Like he'll have 10 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, which actually those are really good stats. But you just think of big time numbers when you're talking about Jimmy Butler, who's a second round, third round pick at the least, or the latest, the third round pick. So you always think that you're probably gonna have like these big explosion numbers from Jimmy Butler, but sometimes he just get it done Draymond Green style, where he don't really got a lot of points, but he give you a few steals, he'll give you some rebounds, he'll give you assists, and kind of just sprinkle a little bit of love across the board. Anyways, you look at CRM's points last week, 958 points in 1 week. This man almost recorded 1,000 points, and that's even high. Nobody had even close to 900 points in the longest week of the season, which is week 11, and that was, of course, the All-Star break. So for the All-Star break, we technically got 9 games because there was two makeup games due to postponements in the first half of the season. So they started a little bit early and had who was it? It was Washington and the Spurs and somebody else, two, of course, two other teams that came back and played games early from the All Star break to kind of help make up the games that were postponed in the first half of the schedule. But anyway, so 8 days, in 8 days, an extra day of games, the highest point total was 835, and that was by Too Legit. But actually, the record for the regular season was 848 points by Too Legit, and that was in week 10 when Too Legit beat One Piece 9-4. He had 848 points. Now, of course, we know this was due to Washington. They had 5 games that week. And look at this: Westbrook 111 points, Bill 174 points in 1 week. That's crazy. So in 5 games, Bill averaged 34.8 points, and Westbrook averaged 22.2 points in week 10, and Too Legit destroyed that category in week 10. But anyways, again, for this season, even though this is technically playoffs now, CRM highest point total in a week, and it's hard not to understand why. It's not hard to understand why he's able to do that with all the quality players he has on his team. Look at this: 4 people scored over 100 points, and then you got Siakam, who he dropped, who who had 86 points. I mean, come on, man. Like, you're able to drop guys that had 86 points. That's crazy. And I get it. Toronto has basically all but kind of folded their arms and said, we're done with the season. So I understand dropping Siakam. Uh, but, what I'm saying, just the fact that you're able to have a guy that's expendable like that, and you take 86 points off of this, and he still has high 800 points that he's scoring. So, you know, anyways, the point is that category belongs to CRM most likely. That shouldn't be an issue for him to have those points wrapped up by the time we get to Sunday. Next up, I also have to give the rebounding categories, both offensive rebounding and defensive rebounding, to CRM. We got Sabonis here, and again, these are the last 14 days stats for the last 14 days. Sabonis out here getting you 2.4 offensive rebounds, 9.4 defensive rebounds. Of course, we got Joel Embiid doing what he does best, 2.3 offensive rebounds, 8.4 defensive rebounds. And then, of course, Anthony Davis is starting to heat up and really start to get into game shape, and he's averaging 1.8 offensive rebounds, 6.2 defensive rebounds. So even with Andre Drummond there, Davis is still getting some quality boards that he's pulling down, averaging 8 boards a night right now over the last 14 days. It's hard not to see how CRM doesn't get this rebounding categories locked in fairly early. And the last category that I feel is a lock that also goes to CRM, and again, that's under assists. Now, again, I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth because, again, I don't think Sabonis plays all 5 games. I don't think Drew Holiday plays all 5 games. But again, on paper, right now, we're assuming that they do play 5 games. You got 7.3 assists from Ja Morant. He has 5 games. Drew Holiday, 5.9. Sabonis, 6.4. And then you still got guys like Jimmy Butler going ahead and chipping in 7.2 assists a game. So you look at that, you got 4 guys that got about 6+ assists, and 3 of them played 5 games. Kyrie don't pass that much. Curry, he's a good distributor, but that's not really his game, is to go out there and just dominate assists. So I'm not seeing where the assists are going to really come from to overwhelm CRM in this category either. So again, if we go over the math, CRM, I'm giving him free throws made, 3 points made. I'm sorry, free throws made, points, offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds, and assists. So those are 5 categories that I think are a lock for CRM. And then for team proof, I have him locking in free throw percentage and 3 points made. So that's 7 categories that are off the board. So that means that we're playing for 6 categories between the two of these managers, and that's going to be 3 points made, 3-point percentage, steals, blocks, turnovers, and personal fouls are probably the 5 categories that they're really going to be fighting over these 7 days. And honestly, because of how top heavy CRM's team is, I would probably give the edge to Team Proof to holding down turnovers and personal fouls, even with the ad drops, just because there's so much usage from CRM's main players. Anyways, I'm looking forward to a really good matchup between these two managers. Team Proof used to be a real heavyweight in this league, so I'm excited to see if he's able to bring it and really put some pressure on CRM. And of course, we know CRM's pedigree. He's already won 5 championships. He's looking to be the first one to 6. So I'm sure Cradle is probably rooting for Team Proof to get his first one, just to slow down CRM and give Cradle the opportunity to be the first one to get to 6. But it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. These two have a little bit of playoff history, mainly at the beginning of our league, and let's go ahead and look at that real quick. So if we look at the playoff grid, we'll go ahead down to WMD, since he's the top ranked player right now as far as being third in the standings going into the playoffs against the 6th place team, Team Proof. And we'll just kind of go through the different teams that we got here. Team Proof. So we look at this matchup between, or the history between Team Proof and WMD. We see that they've already played 4 times before. Again, very early in their careers, 2007, 2008, 2009, faced each other 3 times in a row. Those, and that's basically our first 3 years of existence. And WMD won all those matchups. Then later on, a little bit down the road, of course, in 2014, there was a 6-6-1 matchup, and that went to Team Proof with the victory there. He had the tiebreaker and won that matchup in 2014. So if you look at the overall history between these two players, CRM, his record over Team Proof is 29, 22, and 1 for a 57.6 winning percentage against Team Proof. So not bad. Of course, you see there's some close games, but again, this is so far removed that these two have played. These guys are both brand new managers in the way they kind of treat fantasy. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of new tricks and maneuvers to this fantasy matchup between these two. So not a very illustrious history between these two managers, but there is some history there. And again, all I'm hoping for is a really awesome matchup between these two as they duke it out going into week 20, trying to play for this championship and just, keep us entertained, man. I'm just looking for something close. And I'm hoping that Sunday, when, we're watching these games and I'm watching to see what happens with this playing tournament, I could also kind of just check in on fantasy and, see if this is coming down to a couple blocks, a couple steals, some 3-point percentage, somebody shooting a half court shot at the end of a quarter or a half, see if that's gonna maybe drive up that 3-point percentage or drive down that 3-point percentage between these two teams. Because again, those are the categories that I think they're really gonna be fighting over. So good luck to the two managers. One of you guys will be receiving the DHL Championship belt from our previous champion, Elhan. He's going to have to get that over to y'all FedEx. And again, I think going forward, we really should all pitch in like $2 so that way whoever has to send the belt don't have to pay for that themselves. But somebody's going to be getting a belt in the mail, so both of y'all better go ahead and text Elhan y'all address so that way once this matchup ends, he can go ahead and put that in the mail next day because I want my belt right away. Right away if it's me. So anyways, hope to enjoy this. Hope you guys enjoy the preview. Take care and let's have an enjoyable week. We do have some other things that we need to take care of. We do need to go ahead and select our commissioner for next season so that way when things are ready to get started, that power has already passed. I know a lot of people not really checking in right now since you don't have anything to play for, but we gotta connect either through text or something and figure out what we want to do with our season going into our 16th year. Oh, actually no, that'll be our 15th season next year. So that's another thing too. We'll see how everything happens. People getting vaccinated and whatnot. I personally haven't yet, personal choice, but I'm just a little nervous. I ain't gonna lie, I'm just a little nervous about the vaccine. But anyways, I would like to have a reunion for the 15th anniversary. So hopefully we can get together and do something like that. I'm not sure how that will play out with everything going on, but it'd be nice to get a little reunion, get our new commissioner in, and get this draft going, and just enjoy the year. Have whoever the champion is will be able to show off that belt in person, and you know that's this that I. If anything, if anybody's gonna want to vote for a 15-year reunion, it should be the champion, just so he can rub everybody's faces in, in the fact that he got the belt. So I'm babbling now. I do appreciate you guys spending time with me to go ahead and review this matchup. Hope everybody's still engaged a little bit, even if all you're doing is playing for your draft position. You know what I'm saying? I'm going for Giannis next year. That's who I'm going for. I want Giannis in yeah, at pick number 5, so I'm trying to beat Cradle. And I know Giannis misses some games and things of that nature. I got to deal with that every year, but I'm gonna go ahead and speak it into existence now. That's who I'm going after right now. Of course, things could always change over the summer. Good luck to Elhan and Pep, who will be playing for third place. I know it's not what you guys were hoping for, but hey, it's a trophy in your trophy case, so it's something. So go ahead and knock that out, and hopefully have a good matchup there. And I will talk with you guys later. Peace.